There are habits that look like faith, that sound like faith, that everyone around you would call faith. And underneath them, quietly, week after week, something in you is going hollow. 5 habits today. Not sins anyone would call out from a stage. The kind that get complimented, actually. Wow, you're so committed. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. None of these will look like failure. That's the whole problem. 1. Staying so busy for God that you never actually get close to Him. The schedule fills itself without you even trying. Volunteering, setting up chairs, staying late to stack them again. People notice. They tell you how much they appreciate you. And somewhere in the last year, your actual conversation with Him quietly shrank down to whatever's left over after the serving is done. Most nights, there's nothing left over. You fall asleep having talked to a dozen people about God, and to God, not really at all. A servant can spend his whole life doing tasks for someone he barely speaks to. Being useful to someone and being close to them were never the same relationship. Ask yourself honestly, when did doing things for Him quietly become easier than being with Him? 2. Filling your ears with Christian content and calling it growth. The sermon clip on your feed, the podcast on the drive to work, the worship playlist. You take in more of it in a week than a lot of believers 100 years ago heard in a year. And somehow you feel thinner, not fuller. You can eat all day and still be malnourished if none of it is actually nourishing. If it just passes through and changes nothing about how you actually live. Hearing something was never meant to be the finish line. It was meant to lead into a decision, a hard conversation, a changed direction. When it just refills the feed and stops there, it isn't feeding you. It's just noise with a verse attached. What's the last thing you heard that actually changed what you did the next day? If that one hit a little close, stay with me. The next one is uglier because it feels like the opposite of pride. 3. Feeling right with God by measuring yourself against someone else's mess. You hear about someone's failure, a marriage falling apart, an addiction finally public, a name people are whispering about, and something in you quietly exhales before it does anything else. Not compassion first, relief first. At least that's not me. 2 men once stood in the same building to pray. One ran through a list of people he was glad he wasn't. Cheats, sinners, the man standing right behind him. The other couldn't even lift his eyes and just asked for mercy. And the one who walked out, actually right with God, was not the one holding the list. Feeling okay because someone else is worse isn't righteousness. It's relief, wearing righteousness's clothes so it doesn't have to look at itself too closely. If your peace depends on someone else's collapse, it was never peace with God to begin with. 4. Punishing yourself and calling it repentance. You mess up, and instead of bringing it to Him, you sentence yourself. The silent treatment you give your own soul, replaying it for days, refusing to pray until you feel sorry enough, keeping the guilt around like it's proof you actually care. That's not repentance. Repentance turns toward Him. What you've been doing turns inward and just sits there, serving a sentence nobody asked you to serve. Forgiveness was never something you earn by suffering long enough first. It was the thing that made the suffering unnecessary. If you're still punishing yourself, you haven't actually walked into the room where the verdict was already decided, in your favor. You're still standing outside it. We all do this. I've sat in that guilt longer than I needed to, mistaking the ache for holiness. If more than one of these has been you, that's not condemnation. That's just honesty finally catching up. Worth a tap on that like button if something here is naming what you felt for a while. 5. Calling isolation spiritual maturity. I don't really need church. I have my own relationship with God. You've said some version of that or thought it, usually right after someone in a church disappointed you. And slowly, quietly, just me and God became just me. No one close enough to notice when you drift. No one to ask you the hard question. No one who'd even know if you stopped moving toward him at all. A single coal pulled out of a fire doesn't burn brighter from the independence. It just goes cold, alone, while still glowing faintly enough to convince itself it's fine. Faith was never designed to survive by itself. The version of you that needs no one is usually the version that's quietly going out. Here's what all 5 have in common. Busy instead of close, fed instead of formed, relieved instead of righteous, punished instead of forgiven, alone instead of alive. Every one of them wears the costume of devotion, and every one of them, left long enough, hollows out the very thing it was supposed to protect. And here's the hope in that. None of this means you've lost your faith. It means you've been practicing the appearance of it, and an appearance can be put down the moment you actually see it for what it is. So sit with this honestly. Where has activity replaced closeness? Where has content replaced obedience? Where has comparison replaced peace? Or punishment replaced grace? Or independence replaced belonging? Looking holy was never the goal. Being close to Him was. Lord, show me where I've been performing what should have been real. Show me what I've let stand in for actually being near you. Bring me back, not to busier, not to better, just back to close. Let me stop serving a sentence you already lifted. A habit can look holy for years and still be quietly hollowing you out. Closeness is the only thing that isn't a costume. Which of the 5 found you? Drop the number in the comments. And send this to someone who's been doing all the right things and still feels far from God. Subscribe to guard your spirit, because next time we're looking at what the Bible actually means by saved, and the answer isn't what most people grew up assuming.